So this video is just going to be a talking head video, just me talking, no graphics, none of that jazz. I just really wanted to get this out because I wanted to counter a lot of the misinformation that is out there about today's housing market. So I did take a couple notes, and let's get to it. So you have people in the industry, I'm one of them, that most of them will probably tell you that it's a good time to buy. You know, there is an incentive to doing so because they make commissions by people buying and selling houses. You have a lot of people in the media telling you that it's a bad time to buy, trying to, without giving you the fundamental data to back that up. If you get most of your news from social media, what that's going to do is just confirm what you already believe or feel, because the algorithm is designed to keep you engaged, and the main way they do that is by giving you more of the content that you are viewing. And then there's family and friends. Everybody has that uncle, brother, sister, relative, or best friend that loves to play doctor, lawyer, and economist. But the truth is, whether they're telling you it's a good time to buy or a bad time to buy, they're partially right and partially wrong. No one can tell you with 100% certainty what the market is going to look like exactly a year from now. No one has a crystal ball. I mean, you can follow trends, you can follow historical data, and that could give you an indication of probabilities of what's more likely or less likely to happen. But beware of anyone who tells you they know exactly what's going to happen in a year from now. Why do I say things like this? Is because you cannot anticipate unforeseen events. I mean, just like OPEC cutting oil production last week, or maybe we get another pandemic, or we go to war. You don't know these things in advance. Now, the reason why I say that I believe that all these sources are partially right and partially wrong is because all real estate is local. Most of what you've been hearing is either taking all real estate at a national level or at a global level. Even in the housing crash of 2008, there were some markets that actually increased in value. The housing market is highly complex, and there are a number of factors that can influence the market. Most of those key fundamentals can be broken down into either supply or demand, and I'll kind of go into some of them right now. First, we'll look at supply, and we'll talk about sellers. You know, over the last few years, these sellers have been able to buy or refinance their homes at very low rates. I mean, historically, we've never seen rates like these ever. So what has happened is they've locked in low payments, low taxes because their property values aren't nearly as high as they are now. And both of those key factors are helping keep foreclosures very low. And put yourself in their shoes for a moment. If they sell, they'll still have to buy something else or rent, right? So if they do buy something else, they're looking at a much higher price and a much higher interest rate. So, and on top of that, they're gonna have to pay higher taxes because now the tax base is based on the property value of when they purchased that house. So in this market, you could understand the hesitancy of sellers of selling their home right now. Another big factor influencing supply is new construction of homes. Ever since the housing crash of 2008, construction has not kept up to what historically it has been. So let's talk about the demand side. We'll talk about population growth, both native born and a net migration. You're looking at new housing formation, kids finally moving out of the house to get a place of their own, and the new construction is simply not keeping up with these new house formations. Inflation plays a key role in the demand side as well. Pay increases simply cannot keep up with high inflation that we're experiencing now. That means most families have less disposable income, and the Fed is raising interest rates to fight it. So what happens when interest rates go up? That means it's much more expensive to borrow money. And the average monthly mortgage payment is about $900 more than it was a year ago. Another key factor influencing demand is the higher market price. Combined with the interest rate, that means the average buyer can afford to buy a much smaller house than they could just a couple years ago. Another factor influencing demand is the belief that home prices will continue to go down. So all they need to do is just sit tight and wait for the market to hit bottom, buy then, and then they could jump in at a low market price. And in some markets, we're already seeing that happen with some sellers reducing the price, their asking price, or giving extra concessions to the buyers. To sum it up, the supply side is down and the demand side is down. So what happens is that you're going to have a pretty stagnant market. Things are going to move pretty slowly. So in many markets, it looks like there is more supply than last year. But keep in mind, last year, homes were selling in 1 to 2 weeks, whereas now they're selling in about 30 days or so. So on the supply side, if sellers are less willing to put their house on the market and the new construction is not keeping pace with the new housing formations, but then also on the demand side, buyers are waiting out the market until home prices hit rock bottom. And this is where I'm going to inject my opinion of what I think is going to happen. I think most markets, we're going to likely weather this transition pretty well. Some will even see decent price increases, while other markets will see big drops in prices, particularly those that were red hot and inflated values of 40 to 50% year over year. Which brings us all back to the question, should you buy? Now, that's a loaded question, and it really depends on what is most important to you and the market that you're buying in at. So I'll start with the cons first. Yes, home prices are near record highs, and their interest rates are super high, and they plan to go even higher with the Fed wanting to raise rates to temper inflation. So that means buyers right now will be able to afford much less home than they could just a year or two ago. And higher prices means higher taxes. So keep that in mind. That's the other part of owning a home. You have principal and interest with your loan, and you have taxes, property taxes, and insurance for your home. If you have a mortgage, you're required to hold insurance. Not to mention the other costs such as maintenance, private mortgage insurance if you put down less than 20% if you're not buying VA, and maintenance fees if you're buying FHA. And now for the pros, and again, it's depending on your market. But in most cases, there's far less competition than there was just a year ago. So that means you can actually pick out the home you want instead of being stuck with whatever offers gets accepted. You don't have to waive your rights like inspection or contingencies. There's no time pressure. You don't have to put in an offer the same day you see it. You can actually think about it and talk it over and see what your options are. Many markets are experiencing price cuts right now. Builders are giving larger cash incentives and they're lowering prices. Sellers are way more willing to negotiate. You can negotiate closing costs, repairs, little upgrades like carpet, paint, put toward your debt pay down, or even temporary buy downs to reduce your payment for the first few years so that in a couple years you can refinance and lock in a lower rate when the rates eventually do come down. So my advice is to just buy when it makes the most sense for you, your family, and your situation. You know, regardless of what the market is doing, always try to take a long view if this is something that you're going to buy and hold, because average prices, home prices will continue to outpace inflation over the long term. So here's the last thing I want you to think about. What do you think is going to happen with all the buyers that are currently sitting out the market just waiting for the interest rates to drop back down again? Again, I don't have a crystal ball either, but all that pent-up demand, what do you think is going to happen? I feel that most of those will jump back into the market and try to buy up when they can. Sellers won't want to sell if they're underwater on their mortgage, meaning that they owe more than what their house is currently worth. So you're going to have a tight supply and an explosion in demand. What happens when there's low supply and high demand? We're going to get what we experienced the last couple of years. I don't think it's going to be nearly as severe as that nationwide. It may be in some certain local markets. But there's going to be high competition to buy again, you know, with offers over asking, waiving contingencies, and all that jazz. So bottom line, do what's best for you and your family and buy when you are ready. Seek out unbiased sources of information and talk to people that you trust. And that's it for today. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.